मछली के साथ दूध का आइटम, दूध का आइटम। खुला पीस है ना। हाँ, मतलब कल बात किए हैं अपने फ्रेंड से, तो उसने सारा कोटेशन दिया है कि आपको जो भी इक्विपमेंट चाहिए, जो भी मंगाना है, बताया कि आप उसमें टिक लगा दीजिएगा। कोटेशन दिया है, बहुत सारा आइटम है। बोला कि जो भी जरूरत। हाँ, तो बताया, बोला कि के पास ऐसे भी लोग हैं जो 10 साल 15 साल से एक्सपीरियंस कर रहे हैं, तो ट्रेनिंग भी दे सकते हैं। मतलब हाई लेवल तक आप। गया वाला। हाँ, गया वाला। और आदि ग्राम मुझे आपको जो वाले ट्रेनिंग चल नहीं रहा है, फंक्शनल नहीं, लेकिन वो प्रोवाइड करा सकते हैं कोई एक्सपर्ट ट्रेनर प्रोवाइड। हाँ, ट्रेनर प्रोवाइड करा सकते हैं। वो रजत मेरा जो है, के पास इक्विपमेंट्स है सारा। अब वो ट्रेनिंग पर्पज के लिए हम लोग को चाहिए तो मंगवा सकते हैं, अगर खरीदना नहीं तो। अगर हम लोग खरीद लेते तो उनको बजट में दिखाना है, खरीदना है। ऐसा था कि हम लोग उसमें दिखा रहे थे कि हम लोग गिफ्ट के तौर पे दे देंगे ना, that they can do on their own। हाँ, अगर केसेस वाले के पास रहेगा तो बाद में भी ट्रेनिंग कराना रहा तो हो जाएगा, हो जाएगा। सबको याद है क्या? सबको बुला लो। नीचे ग्राउंड फ्लोर के। हेलो।
मुझे लगता है कुछ लोग आ जाओ, थोड़ा सामने आ जाओ थोड़ा। तो अभी कुछ हो रहा है माइक में, थोड़ा सामने आ जाओ तभी
पीछे
ना गैप में रखो।
ऊपर जो है
We are काम नहीं कर रहे। देखो गाना है सुनी सभी ना, हम लोग स्टार्ट करते हैं। Okay, we are going to start the next session. हमारे रिक्वेस्ट में डॉक्टर सौरभ चक्रवर्ती थोड़ा एग्री हुए हैं। उनका काम के बारे में थोड़ा हम लोग ऐसे ही मतलब हम लोग का रिक्वेस्ट है। उनका एक शॉर्ट बायोग्राफी में बायोडेटा मेरे पास है। दैट आई एम जस्ट रीडिंग इट आउट। He is a professor in computer science at ISI Kolkata. He earned his bachelor's in mathematics from Chennai Mathematical Institute, followed by master's and PhD in computer science from University of Chicago. He studied under Professor Lazo Babai. Am I correct pronunciation or I don't know? He has done postdoc in Technion Israel and CWI Amsterdam before joining Chennai Mathematical Institute in 2010. Later, he moved to ISI in 2018. His research interests include theoretical computer science. He has nearly 100 research papers, most of them published in ASTR conferences and journals. He designed algorithm that is known as CVM algorithm, and it is highly appreciated. And now it has been incorporated in Python as a module. He also has a Boolean function named after him, that is Chakravarti function. His many paper has been listed among some of the papers in top computer science journals. We currently involved in understanding and providing correctness of AI and machine learning techniques and how verification of algorithm done using the modern technique. So हम लोग और एक है उनका एक verification tools named with Barbaric वो that is designed by him. तो मुझे लगता है हम लोग ज्यादा टाइम वेस्ट नहीं करके उनको सुनते हैं ओवर टू यू
Thanks for inviting me. I have thought that I would just come here to, yeah, I'm audible, right? Yeah. So, sorry, I am not even speaking Hindi. My Hindi is horrible. I'm a Bengali. So, I don't want to make a fool of myself. So, if you have any doubts, any questions, I want it to be a very much of an informal meeting. So, feel free to shout out in whatever language you can. I will understand English. So, that's no problem. So, I thought that I would just come and see what all everybody is working on. And when I was requested to give some talk on this thing, so I will be talking about this thing. What is there right now is the importance of food research. But before that, I would like to just maybe see a little bit of myself about what research do I do, right? So that is very different from what research that goes on in ADRI. So maybe that's a good way of introducing you to a different kind of work. So let me give you an idea of two particular areas or problems that I have been working on. Right? Let me explain it in the most simple way as I can. The government has a particular government agency has made a web page, right? And they want to reach out to lots and lots of people. Maybe Bihar government, some kind of health department wants to reach out to every possible person in Bihar through that web page. What does it mean by that? They want to see that everyone actually comes there, checks out their details, right? How many of it is natural for them to ask how many people are actually visiting my web page, right? So think that this problem comes to you guys. Okay, there is a web page. I want to know, so the government wants to know how many people are actually coming to the web page. So that involves some simple things, right? You have to write a program. You have to write an HTML code or some code in some ways it can be in the program kind of stuff, right? And you can say, and that's not hard, right? You can use ChatGPT. You need good engineers who knows how to handle all of those things. And what will you do? Every time someone comes to the web page, maybe you would like to increase the counter. You have to check how many people have visited this web page. But there's a problem. What's the problem? So if every time someone comes to that web page, if the counter increases, right? If there's a, I mean, particularly for people who are slightly older, 10 years ago, many of us in web pages used to have a counter. How many people have visited my web page, right? So same thing can be done here, right? Are you happy with that? Do you think the government will be happy with the counter? No? Why not? If a person visits 100 times, then that counter will be increased 100 times. If a person is coming once, it's going to be increased only once. Now, government, if 1 crore people have actually visited, has no idea whether it's actually 1 crore people, 1 crore different people have visited, or is it like 1 lakh people have visited, everyone visiting 100 times. Okay, so now we have a different question in mind, right? How many distinct people has come? Now, how will you do it? Of course, you can say that, okay, what I want to program, how do I write it? How do I code it up? But here we are talking about slightly more higher than just coding, right? Forget coding. Even if you know how to do coding, even if you know all of those things about coding, how will you What will you store? How will you, what is the mathematics behind it? Right? A simple thing will be, oh, no, good problem. Everyone comes, they will be visiting from some IP address or something, right? I will store the IP address. No, I will just store the IP address and see how many different IP addresses come. Now that means if 1 crore people are visiting, you have to store 1 crore IP address. You guys know how to handle data, right? Is 1 crore data an easy thing to handle? No, right? And the government is possibly not interested to know which individual has reached. Government just wants to know how many people are coming, whether it is at the range of 1 crore or 1 lakh or 10 lakhs, right? So in some sense, you are doing way too much by popping down every possible IP address. The storage becomes huge, it becomes a bulky process. You need gigabytes of storing data. You need whole infrastructure for that. It becomes a slow process, right? So what do we do? Can you come up with what we call as algorithm? The algorithm has 2 parts. One is the writing of the code. Other is the math. What is the new way you can deal with it? The clever way of dealing with it, so that the actual answer comes out without me storing the whole information. This is actually not at all a new problem to study. It's a very old problem to study. Lots and lots of work has been done. And it is one of the problems that I was trying out some other problems. And it so happened that whatever we came up with some other problem ended up solving this problem in a very simple. So what I do is that is what we call theoretical reasoning. To come up with an algorithm to kind of prove that why those algorithms are better than others, meaning how it is faster, how it is saves space, saves time, and that's where my work ends. That one is taken up by engineers, who then codes up, and down the way, someone will possibly start using it. Right now, for example, this particular word has been, I mean, if you just go to Python plugin and you search for CVM algorithm, that comes out there as a plugin. And exactly solving this. Now, of course, there's a whole mathematics behind it, the beauty of the math, and I don't know what I really disturbing at all. But that's one of the kind of work that we have been. Let me tell you another word that I think will be very important for many times here. It is kind of related to the modern day machine learning. Okay? So the machine learning algorithm is a program, right? Put in something, it comes out. That doesn't mean that. That's a very, very important. And let me ask you an even more simple thing. If you ever use randomness, right? You use randomness, you use sampling. How do you get randomness? Right? You use randomness from what Python is giving you. You know that random is not actually random. It's not. And there's a reason behind it. So producing pure randomness is very, 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 very. So, I mean, that we're talking about a very basic level, right? So then comes down that how do you check this? So even if say for Python case, randomness somewhat has been kind of worked out. But if you use something slightly more complicated, for example, sampling from a normal distribution, they're complicated. They're really off. You need to then start understanding how off it is. If it is that off, what can we do? Right? We don't expect a person who is using Python to know all of it, but someone behind it should know what is being passed on and quantify the problem. Right? It's not completely bad, but it's not correct also. Can we improve? And more importantly, if somebody comes up with something new stuff, how to check whether it is really correct. So this is something that you might have heard of it a little bit. It's called the verifiable AI, provable AI. All of these things are like big things coming up. These are the kind of stuff that. Working proof. There are different kind of proof. Again, I don't want to go into it. There's theoretical proof, there's empirical proof, there's via various things. But kind of for that report, it's for. Yeah, go ahead.
Are aware that quantum but yes, they actually I think they work on I think particles, two particles on one side. So can like programming ever achieve that level of randomness? Is it possible?
So, never. The reason is that when we talk about pure randomness, right? We talk about real life, real numbers, right? But in any of the program, computer program stuff, you are working on this. It's a gap. And of course, there's a trade-off, which everyone will tell you. Like for example, you guys, right? You know that you need data. Good data means good results. But what is the trade-off? Oh, there is a financial constraint, right? You have only this much money, with which what can we do? For us, it is similar. We know how to get very good samples, very good randomness. There are mathematics behind it. We know that. Very close to it. We have to pay. What do we have to pay? Time. When you say that produce me a random number, you are not going to wait for 5 minutes to get a random number, right? You are literally expecting it to come out like this. That's where time comes. If I produce a very good random number, before time, computer needs to do lot of is magical, be done. So it's a trade-off. And depending on what is the need of the problem, if it is hypercritical cases, you might want to spend time to get very good randomness. Sending people to space, you don't want to really risk of that, right? Yeah, they do this very high level of computation. For some small levels, you can trade off. More importantly, it's important to understand the mathematics behind it, to understand the trade-off. And that is what we kind of. So these are the kind of work that I do in my area of research. It is called theoretical computer science. And more, this area is coming closer and closer to real life thing for everything. Thanks to AI, it's like there, everything is there. AI seems to have a solution for everything. And this brings me to my second part of what I want to say. And this is, yeah, let me, yeah. So actually, this is kind of taking a, I mean, yesterday you only asked that about the predatory journals. Yeah. And that made me thinking of this thing that I mean, it might be important for me kind of even have a discussion on this particular war. Right? And it is not only it is important because you asked it, but this is something that I have been feeling for many years now, particularly with the advent of AI and all. I go to various colleges for various assessment of projects and all. And everybody seems to be writing a bit. And then it comes up that, I mean, what is going on there? Like, come on, tell me that. On the other hand, let me talk about ADRI here. I have been associated with, not associated, I mean, coming to ADRI 13 years or something like that. In this time, I have been lucky enough to meet some of the great scientists or researchers in this area. They have taken work done here and have ended up writing papers that have made their case. They are big names in big institutes like University of California, San Diego, Connecticut University, Stanford University, LSE. Why aren't the same data, same results being used here to produce the same impact? Where is the gap? The starting is that even now there are people like Saran, right? Emma Saran are all doing outstanding research. Using data, using the same kind of technique done here. But then why isn't results from here? And that's why I want to really kind of say, have this kind of discussion. Again, this is a very, I'm not a pedagogical person, so it is my attempt to kind of explain as a slightly more experienced researcher than you guys, how one can try to approach research. I think I have met lots of other friends also, who are once become research. So what is research? Now this, whatever is written here, you all know this one, right? There is a scientific approach to doing this whole thing. You want to have a very solid foundation, you want to ask the correct questions, the hypothesis testing, do the different stuff, all of these things. But the thing that keeps on have also followed supposedly the same state of paradigm, right? The people in Stanford have also followed the same state of paradigm. That is, they have used the same set of data. Where has the gap happened? And we have to feel actually in once you get some result, this is something that I keep on seeing in many of the projects. That okay, I have used some techniques, I have done some stuff. It has as if a person comes from outer space and suddenly lands up, it will seem like that person's work has solved the whole university problem. I have solved it. Everything has been done. Is it the case? There is no need that your problem has to solve every problem or your paper has to solve everything. If you can compare yourself with other stuff, so okay, what have they done? What have I done? Take up any of those papers that are they gave in the top journals. It's important to do that and to be judgment. Figure. You have found out an idea, don't stop there. How is that idea? Or you have found out a nice hypothesis? How is that hypothesis stated to all the other work that you have? How does it compare with? What is the shortcomings? The biggest problem that nobody says that what is shortcoming of our work? As if it seems like every paper has no shortcomings. No, shortcomings are not bad. They are positive. If you cannot identify your shortcoming, then you are not a good person. A good paper to know that okay, my shortcoming. And this is my point. So this comparison has to be done very rigorously. Okay, now comes to a very important point. It's use of AI/ML. And what type of AI? I don't know really. Right? Five. Okay, so I don't really want to. Well, the AI/ML is all over the place. Okay. But please, let's use one. AI/ML is not a solution. It is a tool. Okay. In this case, I want to give an analysis that hopefully will be able to understand better. Say, if I want to make a movie, right? Movie was being made 100 years ago. Movie was being made 40 years. Movie was being made 20 years ago, right? What was the criteria of making movies? Okay, you have to be put in a good script, good cinematographer, good editor, good something, all of this stuff. Nowadays, making movies, right? Everybody is making movies, having reels, having YouTube. You can apply AI to produce movies. What is the gap between? Why is that AI? You can produce a movie of 1 hour length, say, using AI. Then will produce you a movie, right? Or will it hit the levels at the top level, right? Okay, let's ask the other question. Do the people who are actually making the top movies, are they using AI? Of course, they are using AI. But what with AI? Don't give yourself. AI can always do lots of things. Learn how to use AI. Okay? Use AI to formulate an hypothesis. Work with it more. Check whether it is correct. Work with it more. Come up with a solution. Use AI. But just because AI gives you something, that's not the end. Okay, one of the big things is that AI is not correct. Believe me. Okay. That's the difference between an AI and a calculator. Calculator where we was always give the correct answer. AI unfortunately doesn't give the correct answer. But in new world, AI doesn't give bad answer also. Right? You have to understand this place where really stepping. For example, this dog, believe me, I made it in 5 minutes. Using ChatGPT. Okay? Of course, I did not ask ChatGPT to do the whole thing. It's not a problem. But you use it. Okay, and so Yeah. So other than AI, of course, there are other things which is important. As we told out, writing. Again, very important concept. I mean, writing it properly. Writing, I don't mean the English, the logic behind it, the arguments, placement of the argument, discussion. This takes a lot of time. So, for example, for me, I'm a pretty experienced researcher, right? Usually, if I once I get my solution, writing takes me nearly 2 months of heavy. Believe me, while everything before it is more fun, it's creative, thinking. This is not that fun, possible. That is really tiring. Without that, you want it to be there. It's like the editing of movies. You have a good movie idea, make it into a proper solid movie. That's where these are the exact places where, believe me, search from say India Institute, we heard from that of Stanford emerging. Just a little bit change their attitude. Okay? I think, yeah, so there are certain things that are there, like this one, like balanced note. This is what I was trying to point out here. That your work has to be balanced. Your work has to say what is your plus point, what is your minus point. You have to argue all of them. Can there be a different hypothesis? Why is your hypothesis the correct hypothesis? Can your results be explained by some other hypothesis? These are kind of missing. And if you once you kind of put in all of those hard work, paper just elevates itself to a different level. And of course, great news. That's important. This is something that I tell all my students whenever I learn how to give talks. Be confident. Go and give talks. Talk to people. Don't be shy. It's your work, your life's work. Be very proud of. Don't think of a work that, oh, it has given me a job and done. No, your life has a meaning. And once you have done something, own it, spread that news. Wherever you get an opportunity, even if it thinks a bit pushy, so be it. Your job, because you are getting paid to do research. If that research knowledge is not spread around, you are making wastage of the money. Right? You need to do that. It talks. And finally, yeah, just think big. Don't please think small. Thinking small will not give you a result. Becoming a good researcher, you have to be very bold. So sorry, I think it's a bit of a preachy kind of stuff, but I thought that it is.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody would like to ask something?
Yeah.
Rakshi. From the person, always the kind of self-harm or good half, like going 3 5
Not always, not always. But what I do from my thing is that, so of course, there is a certain amount of experience that comes in, right? So one thing is that you always start from a top. Okay, don't make a narrow question. Start with a high question, high value question, high impact question. And you always try to put your work in comparison with others. Again, that's very, 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 very important. Okay, just don't say that, oh, this is the question nobody else have asked, I have asked. Then the question is that an important question? Is it related to some other question? Is the same question be applied to some other place? All of these things have to be done. And once you get that kind of a understanding, then you have a thing, you know, good, I'm making good progress. Right? And of course, like for example, the ones that have really become big. Many of them, I also did not understand that it become that big. So like the one that I told you, the CBM algorithm, it was a pretty interesting thing. It was published in top conferences, top journals, literally the A-star conferences. And we came up with it, we wrote something, it was very nice. It's a very interesting story. There's a one guy, you might have heard of him, not, he's called the father of computer. His name was Donald Knuth. He's still alive. He's 95 years old. And my collaborator was kind of confident enough to go to him in Stanford and told that, oh, let me entertain you with an algorithm. And he explained that algorithm. And truth is no, he liked it, loved it. He wrote a whole article on that. And believe me, within 7 days, I was a celebrity, getting messages from everywhere. And now, 1 year down the line, my work is being taught in undergrad programs in abroad. Every place is almost. Now, did I understand the impact that will happen? No, but it kept on trying. We understood that we had done something nice. It's the publicity also comes in the picture, right? And now I'm happy. That has impact. It has impacted. And probably there is even more impact. I mean, it has been then. People took it up. There are videos that are describing this thing. It's impact. So you cannot, of course, judge how much the impact will be, but you have a sense that it is not bad. And if you sense that it is not bad, the other thing that I tell my students is that once you write a something, have a judgment that this is our top level paper literature. Okay? A standard problem with Indian students is that I will send it to a top conference, top journal, it will get rejected maybe. Feel sad and send it to a lower level. I can cite top level conference journals which have become seminal top level papers. It's the seminal works now. They are rejected from 10 times before it got accepted. Every time you get rejected, improve on it, improve on the presentation, improve on the quantity, improve of it. But who think it is good go to a top level journal? Go for top level journal. Therefore, we can that.
I have,
Yeah.
if root is not there,
Yeah.
then whether your CVM will
Would
get
not have been that
no,
well.
that is actually it is not the student, it is the asked. There are some professors out there, they demotivate the student.
No,
It
that
is,
is there. All of it is true. But again, I mean, it's not just for students and all.
yes,
mean,
because
Like again, if Mood was not there, you are correct that you have not been that important. But would be completely wasted? No, I was still aiming for top level conference in journal. It was there. It would possibly have stayed within our niche group of people who know about it. And
will not go
to
in
have
that way.
that much of an impact, you have to take some time. It doesn't last. Have all my work take that impact?
It is
No.
your
Last also is there. But
at
again,
given time.
again, I tell you, if my collaborator had not been that confident and gone up and
to you
told
there.
the truth, would you have known about it? No. So you just take that attention on. Yeah, I have actually one question. I will ask from my end. So, how to select a good professor? It doesn't matter. Okay, again, it's your life, right? Nobody controls you. Remember, our advisor is not your boss. The advisor is just showing you how to do things initially. Okay? That person, of course, will have a certain amount of limitation. Right? If somebody comes to me, will I be able to explain, take the student's hand, help that student in the economics? Of course not. Right? I would only be able to train in the subject that I know. Maybe it's very narrow. Right? The part is that in PhD, just learn the art of research. Once you learn it, okay, and everybody teaches it, you should have the openness. Think of it that same art of research can be pulled into a direction. Don't follow your advisor as he is like he is the god. He is just training you. Have respect for that person. Have respect for that what this person is trying to teach you. But you're that.
Like the third one, give a name of mathematician. We don't say Raman.
Yeah.
We say Einstein.
No, but Ramanujan
Yes, Einstein is different. Equal to MC squared, yes. But Ramanujan is different. So who discovered Ramanujan? Hardy. He came here, he met that people. But we don't get time to go in front of Ramanujan और Ramanujan क्या लिख रहा है वहाँ पे बैठ के. So a person require always to discover.
Right.
But it is a never-ending.
Yeah, but again, coming back to whatever question that you told for the other students, that I can tell a lot. Take any university in India, okay? Doesn't matter how low level a university is, whatever you call it. You will find people who have graduated from there and have made it clearly speaking. How to say it. Right? So if you, as long as your site is high up, then you guys are all kind of lucky. You have been introduced to a place like ADRI, right? Even if you go abroad and go outside and all, what stops you from keeping your work with places where you know that some kind of good work is going on? Again, just think big on this.
Thank you.
I have one experience. Like 2.5 years. Just told me. I have said after there was 8 people, and I yeah, so don't send the email because I was adding point. I just said the youth because I'm not telling like garbage or the support type of stuff. But same good people very good that in general. And yeah, I just sent to the other definitely again send I mean but instead the high tech content yes it is 5.6. He still sent 3.5 something. Just not remember 3.5 and 3.2. Like that, okay. Because after 10 years, after 20 years, 30 years, if you see that research paper, just send a very low or either a not recognized research journal, definitely look at why just whole idea just invested.
Yeah, this is high impact journal. Why do we want to say a high impact journal? The reason is actually the basic of that is that I want my paper to be read more, cited more, cited high cited with high rate, right? And that's what my goal is. I write a paper, I would like more people to know about it. And I have to find out all possible ways in which my paper can be read. One way is to ensure pushing for a high impact journal. Now, again, there might be still, okay, I just need a paper, let's get it down. And that will give me a job or something. Yeah, that's not a big.
Yeah, everyone told also like that.
Yeah, no, I have really taken a lot of that.
Yeah, you can continue. Next is Neha and Anmol. Oh, that's right. More like that.
That was really lightning. Loved it.
Welcome all. It's a privilege for me always to introduce my teachers. And I think the topic that we will be talking now sort of has already set the context. Having impactful kind of research, that means that it's making a difference. And comparing with your other research work, similar type of research work. And this topic is, and never think low and never think that your research is not making can cannot make a decision. And again, epidemiologists, I always say if something is happening, yesterday I told that if something is happening, we have to compare with other group why it's not happening there. So coming out with something. So if you want to have some research at your end, there are certain ways, right? You always are associated with some research work related in your organization. Right now, research has become a mandate, right? At university and college levels, interdisciplinary research and all that stuff. But if you want to have a kind of independent kind of thing, that is even possible when you are having your own student during your masters or even PhD. Don't have to follow the same protocol like this. You can make a difference. And also you can turn your research ideas and what your things in the brain. Here you go, that turning ideas into opportunities guide to proposal writing. So this is an art where we have to adopt, you apply anywhere. Even you write a proposal for support, you have to learn right there. Just Dr. Sharma mentioned that write. Correct ourselves, we prove ourselves to writing. Unless we pick up that skill, it will never happen. AI can do it, but you have to apply your own mind, say whether it's picking up the right objective or not. So over to Anmol and Rachna to continue the discussion. I'm here if you have any other questions, so we can discuss. Over to you. देखिए बात लास्ट तक जा रही है ना?
ऑनलाइन जो देख रहे हैं उनके
Okay, so very good afternoon, everyone. We are going to present on turning ideas into opportunities, a guide to proposal writing. But यहाँ पे हम लोग से बहुत ज़्यादा experience है जो proposal writing के लिए guide कर सकते हैं. We are just going to share our experience. So moving to next. Before starting at this, I really want to know कि हम में से किस ने proposal कभी ना कभी लिखा है. Please raise our hand जिन्होंने लिखा है. Okay. So what exactly does mean? Okay, so one more thing, हाँ. तो जिन्होंने नहीं लिखा है, actually उन्होंने भी proposal दिया है to our parents कि कॉलेज में या स्कूल में कभी ट्रिप पे जाना हो, तो कहाँ जाना है, कितना पैसा लगेगा, कितने दिन के लिए जाना है. तो वो भी proposal हमने पेरेंट्स से एक्सेप्ट करा है. It's just that हम लोग formal proposal writing सीख. So we'll start. What exactly this proposal mean is? तो proposal writing start होता है problem finding से, problem solving से. So we are having one idea कि जो कि एक problem है. So how we are going to solve a problem? We are going to formulate a plan in a formal document कि जो हम submit करेंगे और जिससे जो है हमें आगे funding या approval के लिए help होगा. जैसा इसका purpose क्या होता है? To seek approval for some new initiative. As I said, if I want permission from parents or from the funding agency or from our seniors, we need a formal document जिससे वो लोग पढ़ सके and they will tell us कि हाँ whether we can proceed with that or not. So next purpose of this is to secure funding. And so proposal helps us to do the effective communication. Suppose they want to know what is the goal of the research that we want to do. So they get to know through the 2-page proposal that we are going to submit, what will be the outcome, what will be the methodology, is it feasible or not. So other importance is there to secure the funding and definitely documentation for the future reference. So suppose thesis की टाइम मैंने अपना कर लिया, मतलब मास्टर्स में thesis कर ली. अगर मुझे किसी को बताना है कि हाँ मैंने की है, so definitely that proposal is the documentation कि मैं जिनको show कर सकती हूँ. This is the thing that I did in my masters. So key components of the proposal. So अगर हम key components की बात करें, तो different proposal के लिए आप different methodology से लिख सकते हैं, but हमें ये make sure करना चाहिए कि जो components discuss करेंगे वो proposal में हो. So first is the problem statement. It always starts with a problem statement. जैसे मौसम हमने भी कल बहुत सारे रिसर्च डिस्कस की, but she wanted to solve a problem. जैसे कि एक तो था डायग्नोसिस के लिए, तो हमेशा ये स्टार्ट एक प्रॉब्लम स्टेटमेंट से होता है. सपोज करते हैं एक प्रॉब्लम लेते हैं कि एक स्कूल में यंग एडोलेसेंट गर्ल्स मिसिंग है ड्यू टू द पीरियड. तो उसके लिए जो है, so this is the problem. So what will be the next of the proposal is the proposed solution. तो हम उस प्रॉब्लम के लिए क्या proposed solution दे सकते हैं. Suppose we are going to say this, we are going to prepare we are going to give a vending machine उस स्कूल में जाके जिससे यंग एडोलेसेंट गर्ल्स जो नहीं आ रही हो आ सकेंगी. So next component is the tentative plan. How exactly we are going to achieve this? So for that we are going to give the vending machine. हम प्लान करेंगे इस स्कूल में देंगे, मतलब नियर बाय स्कूल से टू सिलेक्ट द स्कूल्स जहां हम ये वेंडिंग मशीन प्रोवाइड कराएंगे. तो हमारे पास एक प्लान होना चाहिए एंड क्लियर डिलीवरेबल्स. जैसे कि हम ये नहीं बोलेंगे कि बिहार के सारे स्कूल में या जितने भी यंग एडोलेसेंट है हम ये पूरा कर देंगे. हम एक प्रॉपर क्लियर नंबर्स बताएंगे. जैसे कि हम 1000 गर्ल्स का हम बोलेंगे कि मेक श्योर करेंगे कि दे आर गेटिंग द सैनिटरी नैपकिन्स टू द vending machine in this school in this area. We also have to write about the resources in our proposal कि हमें उस इस प्रॉब्लम के लिए ये सॉल्यूशन है और ये बहुत क्लियरली हमें मेंशन करना पड़ेगा. Not only the vending machine, we need human resources and we need monetary thing also to complete this. Monetary की बात करें तो definitely we have to prepare our budget also. How we are going to use the fund, how much we need the fund. Next is the timeline. We are going to make a plan to a Gantt chart. For 3 months we are going to buy the vending machines. In next 3 months we are going to distribute them. In the next 3 months we are going to measure the outcomes. कि हमने वो achieve किया या नहीं किया. Next is the contact information. It is very important to give it. कि अगर हमारा प्रपोजल एक्सेप्ट होता है, इन दीस डेज दे आर आस्किंग एक क्वेश्चन आंसर के फॉर्म में ही, बट पहले मतलब लिख के ही देना होगा. तो या लेट्स मूव. व्हेन वी आर राइटिंग द प्रपोजल्स वी शुड ऑलवेज रिमेंबर द 4 C's. It should be concise. No one likes to read a 28-page proposal. Everyone needs a 2-page proposal. It should be concise and clear. Next is credible. It should be backed by the scientific, research. जैसे कि आर्टिकल का रेफरेंस देते हुए कि this is the problem, this has been seen, different fact sheet and all. It should be consistent. Objective जो है उसी के अकॉर्डिंग हमारा मेथोडोलॉजी होना चाहिए एंड आउटकम. ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए ऑब्जेक्टिव और आउटकम तो हमने सेम कर दिया, मेथोडोलॉजी हमारे जो प्रपोजल है वो मैच ही नहीं कर रहा, वो अचीव ही नहीं कर सकते. And it should be compelling. ये कुछ ऐसा होना चाहिए फंडर पढ़े और बोले कि हाँ इन्हीं को पैसा देना है. Let's move to next. The thesis proposal, grant proposal, dissertation proposal, research proposal. So basic concept always remain the same. कि हमें ये जो components हमने डिस्कस किया, अगर हम thesis proposal लिख रहे हैं तो बजट नहीं आता है, बजट के अलावा सब कुछ आता है. But we have to ensure while writing the proposal that methodology is robust, it should be valid, reliable, and with unbiased conclusion. And that can be only achieved through the innovative solution and the data-driven strategy. So now Anmol is going to share our experience जो हमने proposal लिखते समय हमने लिखा था वो और कहाँ proposal submit कर सकते.
Okay. अभी तक हमने देखा कि थ्योरेटिकल पार्ट की प्रपोजल क्या होता है, कैसे लिखते हैं. तो अब कि हमने प्रपोजल लिख तो लिया, लेकिन अब इसके बाद का प्रोसेस क्या है. तो अब हम देखेंगे कि उसके बाद का क्या. लाइक हमने प्रपोजल तो लिख लिया, लेकिन अब कहाँ सबमिट करना है, उसके आगे का प्रोसेस क्या होना चाहिए. ओके. तो हाँ, am I audible? Okay. तो हम पहले देखते हैं कुछ ग्लोबल फिलैंथ्रोपिक ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस जो कि फंड प्रोवाइड करती हैं.
first is the Gates Foundation. जो हमारी CHP है, which is funded by that only. It is one of the largest foundation. Okay. Second is the Rockefeller Organization. It is one of the oldest organization which funds. Other is the Ford Foundation, Wellcome Trust, Bloomberg Philanthropies. तो ये इनका साइट है, जैसे ये गेट फाउंडेशन का है, तो यहाँ पे है ना रैंडमाइज्ड कंट्रोल्ड ट्रायल ऑन एसटीआईज. तो ये टाइटल पढ़ के पता चल रहा है कि यस दे आर वांटिंग रैंडमाइज्ड कंट्रोल्ड ट्रायल और उनको किस चीज पे चाहिए, तो समथिंग रिलेटेड टू एसटीआई. तो अगर मेरा एरिया ऑफ इंटरेस्ट है, आई एम एबल टू अप्लाई, मतलब हम अप्लाई कर सकते हैं बाय क्लिकिंग, यहाँ पे लिखा है अप्लाई फॉर दिस अपॉर्चुनिटी. सो वी कैन अप्लाई यहाँ से. फर्दर ये तो पता चल गया कि इनको किस चीज पे चाहिए, क्या चाहिए, लेकिन ऑब्वियसली क्योंकि हम प्रपोजल लिखते हैं तो हमारा एक एम ये भी होता है कि ग्रांट्स लाना, मतलब फंड लाना. तो यहाँ पे वो बताते हैं कि उनका फंडिंग लिमिट क्या है, वो कितना पैसा दे रहे हैं, उसके बाद हम एलिजिबल है भी या नहीं इसमें अप्लाई करने के लिए. तो ये सारी चीजें हैं. उसके बाद वो ये भी देते हैं कि उनको प्रपोजल में क्या चाहिए, व्हाट दे आर एक्सपेक्टिंग, और उनको ये बहुत क्लियरली अब मेंशन होने लगा है ऑब्वियसली उनको क्या चाहिए और क्या नहीं चाहिए. तो ये सारी चीजें हैं. और हाँ, एक चीज इंपॉर्टेंट है कि एक बार पढ़ने से ये समझ नहीं आता है, कुछ चीजें मिस हो सकती हैं, तो रीडिंग, रीडिंग एंड रीडिंग करनी चाहिए ताकि हम ये इंश्योर कर पाए कि जो वो हमसे जो एक्सपेक्ट कर रहे हैं वी आर मीटिंग दैट क्राइटेरिया और नॉट. इसके बाद ये वेलकम फंड एजेंसी जो है उसका साइट है, यहाँ पे भी सेम दिया है टाइटल, तो हम यहाँ से पता कर सकते हैं कि हमारा एरिया ऑफ इंटरेस्ट क्या है. सबके अलग अलग होते हैं साइट्स कैसे, लेकिन यही है कि हम उस साइट पर जाके अप्लाई कर सकते हैं. जैसे यहाँ पे हम सॉर्ट कर सकते हैं कि हमें किस एरिया में वी आर इंटरेस्टेड, हेल्थ, एनवायरमेंट या फिर कोई भी ऐसा चीज. उसके बाद है ये ग्रैंड चैलेंजेस कनाडा का. अब क्योंकि हमने देख लिया कि कुछ ग्लोबल काउंटर पार्ट्स थे, ग्लोबल फंडिंग एजेंसीज थी, अब हम देखते हैं कुछ इंडियन काउंटर पार्ट्स उनके. दिस इज ICMR, ऑल ऑफ यू मस्ट बी नोइंग कि ये भी फंड करता है. यहाँ पे भी हम अपने प्रपोजल्स को सबमिट कर सकते हैं फॉर गेटिंग द फंड्स. और यहाँ पे कैसे अप्लाई कर सकते हैं, जो इनका ये ग्रांट्स एंड फंडिंग सेक्शन है इसको क्लिक करेंगे तो ये कॉल फॉर प्रपोजल आएगा. इसको क्लिक करने के बाद और आएगा कि जैसे ये टाइटल है तो उनको किस एरिया में चाहिए, जैसे ये है कि ऑफ सेंसिटिव पल्मोनरी, तो इससे रिलेटेड हम ये पढ़ेंगे. उसके बाद लास्ट डेट कब तक है अप्लाई करने की, क्योंकि ऑब्वियसली ऐसे हमेशा के लिए तो कोई अप्लाई करने के लिए ओपन नहीं हो सकती है. तो हम ये देखेंगे कि हम कब तक अप्लाई कर सकते हैं. डॉक्यूमेंट्स कुछ मेंशन होते हैं जिनमें उनके सारे क्राइटेरिया, वो हमसे क्या एक्सपेक्ट कर रहे हैं, ये सारी चीजें मेंशन होती हैं. Now this is Azim Premji Foundation, same foundation जिसके लिए मैंने और अशना ने हम लोगों ने प्रपोजल सबमिट किया था. तो that was based on young adolescents, जो कि उनको हम हेल्थ एंड न्यूट्रिशन चेंज मेकर्स की तरह बनाना चाह रहे थे. That was our proposal. तो ऑब्वियसली इनके भी कुछ हम लोगों ने डॉक्यूमेंट पढ़ा तो समझ आया कि इनको क्या क्या चाहिए. तो देवर उनका फंड का अपर लिमिट था 40 लाख, ड्यूरेशन वाज ऑफ 2 इयर्स. ये भी मेंशन था कि क्या नहीं चाहिए, तो दे वर नॉट आस्किंग फॉर कोई ऐसा प्रपोजल जो कि एग्जिस्टिंग हेल्थ प्रोग्राम है किसी भी प्रोग्राम पे बेस्ड हो. दे वर आस्किंग फॉर प्राइमरी स्टडीज. और जब हम लोग प्रपोजल लिख रहे थे तो ऑब्वियसली क्योंकि ये फर्स्ट टाइम था तो बहुत सारे चैलेंजेस भी फेस हुए, जैसे कि ऑब्वियसली जो ये होता है कि प्रपोजल कंसाइज होना चाहिए, कंसिस्टेंट होना चाहिए, उसको करने में टाइम लगा. उसके बाद स्टेक होल्डर मैपिंग में टाइम लगा कि हम कौन कौन से स्कूल सेलेक्ट करेंगे, जो हेल्थ केयर फैसिलिटीज उनको टैग करेंगे तो वो कैसे करेंगे, और कितने एक हेल्थ केयर फैसिलिटीज कितने स्कूल को केटर करेगा. तो और सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट चीज जो अब होने लगा, मतलब अब होता है ऑब्वियसली कि वर्ड लिमिट के साथ साथ पेज लिमिट भी था. तो हमें सब बताना है, उनकी एक्सपेक्टेशंस को मीट भी करना है विद इन अ गिवन लिमिट. तो ये सारे चैलेंजेस थे और हम लोग इसमें इतना इंडल्ज हो गए थे कि वे मिस्ड अ वेरी की कंपोनेंट जो कि हमारा की लर्निंग था, कि हम वो चीज तो मीट कर ही रहे हैं उनके जहां से हमको फंड चाहिए उनके पे, हम तो कि हाँ उनको ये चाहिए वी आर मतलब सब फुलफिल कर रहे हैं. लेकिन अभी हम करेंटली किसी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन से अटैच हैं तो वहां का भी कुछ सर्टेन वर्कफ्लो होता है, कुछ प्रोटोकॉल होता है जो वी हैव टू फॉलो. तो दोनों को मेंटेन करके रखना, ठीक है, एक बैलेंस बना के रखना.
So yes, it was a learning for us. Now CSR, this is corporate social responsibility. तो ये होता है कि कोई भी कॉर्पोरेट कंपनी एज रिक्वायर्ड बाय लॉ उनकी जितनी प्रॉफिट अमाउंट होती है उसमें से उनको सर्टेन अमाउंट देना होता है फॉर फिलैंथ्रोपिक नीड्स के लिए। ये बहुत सारे डोमेन्स में होती है जिसमें हेल्थ एजुकेशन मोस्ट कॉमन है, रूरल रिफॉर्म्स होता है, इमरजेंसी मैनेजमेंट होता है, तो ये सारे डोमेन्स में ये लोग करते हैं। और ऑब्वियसली इनका पर्पस होता है फॉर अ पॉजिटिव सोशल इम्पैक्ट और ट्रस्ट बिल्ड करना कि उनका दोनों तरीके से फायदा है ना, उनका ये भी ट्रस्ट बिल्ड हो रहा है कम्युनिटी में कि यस दे आर डूइंग अ गुड डीड, तो उसकी वजह से उनका अपना भी जो एक साइड चीज है वो भी प्रमोट होता रहता है। some example of CSR is Reliance Foundation, Infosys, so this is it। और yes, जैसे कि हमारा टाइटल है कि प्रपोजल इज टर्निंग आइडियाज इनटू अपॉर्चुनिटी, तो आइडिया सबके पास होते हैं और प्रपोजल एक आइडिया ही है, बस वो साइंटिफिक एविडेंस से बैक्ड होता है। और आइडिया तो किसी के पास भी हो सकता है, चाहे वो कोई स्टूडेंट हो या कोई प्रोफेसर हो, किसी के पास भी। और जितने भी बड़े बड़े प्रोजेक्ट्स होते हैं उनकी स्टार्टिंग कभी ना कभी एक प्रपोजल से ही होती है। जैसे कि अनीमिया, बिहार में आयुर्वेद टैबलेट को डिस्ट्रीब्यूट करना ताकि प्रेवलेंस ऑफ अनीमिया कम हो, ये भी एक टाइम पे कोई प्रपोज किया होगा कि यस वी कैन डू दैट। तो लाइक वी शुड ट्राई राइटिंग अ प्रपोजल। Any questions?
So it's just a basic kind of sensitizing the kind of ideas that we can have ideas, some mobile ideas, but translating it into really something back. You need funds. Being a student, sometimes you're restricted by your advisors. Maybe they want to research in the selected topics. So they have वहाँ से आपका cut हो जाता है. But it still you can make a difference. If there is a professor, you can convince them with your kind of robust kind of ideas, methodology, approach, with a measurable kind of outcomes, you can do it. So I have one of our interns, I always mentioning this story. She was doing the internship with us last year. So she was from International Institute of Population Science, Mumbai. And she was basically a demographer and biostatistician. And her all the seniors, most majorly, they have worked on the secondary data, big data set, and their main purpose was like with the prediction of the population characteristics, whatever they are doing. But that candidate, उनको मैंने बताया कि you can have your own ideas and you can convince your professor. And she said it's very difficult, but I will take the challenge. So it was very challenging for us at that age to convince professor to delineate from the obvious path that other schools are following. But believe me, if you believe in yourself, you're confident enough that you can convince the professor with your kind of scientific figure. Because at a very young age, it's not possible to have that understanding of what is scientific figure, what are the sources of how we have a checklist of that bias. We don't know it at least, but if the professor में वो होना चाहिए, मतलब जो students approach है, that has to be absolutely hardworking, honestly. आप लोग convince करना चाहते हैं, सच में आपको कुछ काम करना है, the rigor in yourself can convince a professor. She did a study on a primary data. She did something that was not actually the protocol. The take home message to you, all of you, is that you do have ideas to pursue your, just Dr. Sharma mentioned that pursue your dreams, pursue your ideas, and you also have to have a logistic support and fund for that. You can be having some novel ideas, maybe you're not getting the opportunity. If you're getting the opportunity, how can you turn your opportunity into kind of research work through some funding? Because without fund, without money, nothing is possible. Even if you have to shortcut the duration of your project if the fund is ending. So basically, this is the session where to sensitize the participants, the listeners, to the idea there are kind of funding opportunities. There are funders globally, also at the national level within the states. But uska liye aap logo it
submit some documents as per the need or identified areas. So these areas need to be explored, and between all other universities, there is a particular course on that how to write a draft. So it's actually a 3 year course. So this is the area that needs to be explored further, but you have to read and reread the proposal. A purpose is something that is not done. So you have to read it, and you have to critique of your own writing. Until and unless you become the critic of your own writing and see over and over, probably not reaching the understanding of what concepts to do. So with that, I'm just closing this session. If you have further question, we'll be happily to answer it. I think we are running short of time. I think
We'll take 3 minutes break and then we come back. I just have walk around and yeah.
Thank you.
अभी वो आएंगे क्या पोर्ट्रेट?
यस मैम, गाड़ी में है और 4:30 बजे तक आ जाए।
लाइव पोर्ट्रेट मीटिंग
इनकी করেছি এখনো ফুললি ফাংশনাল নয় ইয়ে দিয়ে তারপরে মানে হ্যাঁ মানে এয়ারপোর্টটা দেখে আছে টার্মিনালটা ঠিক তো এই টার্মিনালটা ফান্টাস্টিক সাইড পার্কিং জায়গাটা হবে মানে সামনে হচ্ছে এখন ওখান থেকে যে গাড়ি করে নিয়ে যাচ্ছে ওগুলোটাকে ভেঙে দেওয়ার পরে তারপরে ওই
संजीव के लिए पनिशमेंट है आदरी के बारे में 2 मिनट बहुत अच्छा चीज है, बहुत बुरा चीज
सबसे बुरा तो यही है मैम।
अच्छी पीएमजेवाई है तो संजीव को 2 मिनट दिया जाता है, बोलो बहुत अच्छा क्या है और पिछलो बहुत बुरा क्या है।
Ahmedabad to London,
Ashish,
इंडिगो का प्लान करते हैं
you're ready to play.
कुछ प्रीवियसली लिख किया है और
Did you call your credit one? हाँ वही देखी मुझे अजीब सा लगा जब रेटे थे हॉस्पिटल के ऊपर नहीं मिला
रेसिडेंशियल लगा है इंडिगो का
इंडिया इंडिया है
इंडिया
वही तो इंडिया तो हमेशा ही आजकल इंडिया
एयर इंडिया
इंडिया
कौन सा वाला कोई बच्चे का नहीं
बचा ही नहीं
कोई बच्चे का
बात
quality of life
क्या है प्रॉब्लम
फोर्थ पर
tea coffee
उनके कॉल करके परेशान है चलेंगे इसके बाद फाइट करेंगे तो ऐसा करके बना के रखा था कि फाइट कर रहे थे वहाँ पे थोड़ा सा बड़ी प्रॉब्लम अपना कॉफी कॉफी या चाय कुछ भी कॉफी या चाय कॉफी डॉक्टर का काउंट नहीं है बाद में जब पता चलेगा तो बताएंगे ना डॉक्टर
Change your choice.
That's hard though.
ये सब तो हमेशा ही whenever some people even at our house they the first so I have chosen first day when he asked I had chosen boiled egg. So he's like refusing to serve sunny side या कुछ भी नहीं और सौरभ sunny side तो उसको तो पता ही नहीं boiled egg या कभी भूलने से कि मुझे sunny side
उठते ही मतलब यहाँ हॉस्पिटल की तरफ से आप कुत्ते का छत पे चले जाएंगे तो आपको एयरपोर्ट दिख रहा है इसलिए कहा बहुत पास
हाँ मेडिकल कॉलेज
पीछे बैठे
विजय रूपानी जी की तो सीएम थी
अभी
चल रहे हैं वो
अभी तो रिसेंटली कश्मीर में भी एक ट्राइब बहुत ज्यादा टर्बुलेंट हुआ है देयर आल्सो सम लाइक Derek O'Brien others were much very এত কম খাচ্ছে বলে আমি বেশি খেয়ে ফেলি সেই জন্য আমার খাই খাই বেশি খাচ্ছে
हाँ मीना जी, ठीक है। हाँ गाड़ी लगी हुई है गेट पे। हाँ, और जल्दी कीजिएगा। ठीक। लिंक कट रहा है वो, तो काट लीजिए। और करते हैं, करते हैं।
फिर भी चला रहे।
अभी तो प्लेन का है, ये हॉस्टल में कितने लोग हैं?
आप तीन चलते ना जाएंगे। हाँ देखिए Very good. Yeah. Will do my whatever. Then it's paid to Bye. Covered. I don't vision topics. Why did I design? I think special need they can sort of book it off there. Look at it. Permanent storage in the place stock with heater. So if you can actually that's
गार्डन एरिया में
but ठीक है मेरे स्टाफ पर गाली देती ना ना पाली connected. Hello, we just begin. Sorry for the delay. We just tired the last session, and we got this very shocking kind of news of this plane crash in Ahmedabad.
the same time.
Thank you, everyone. I'm very that the so I know that this is the last talk of 2 days of continuous talks on various topics that to do constant context. It's which could be very tiring and sometimes very technical. However, I think since most of the people in this are not from the discipline of economics. Possibly you have taken some review of some of the latest work that is being done in the field so that they you get an idea of where economics is as a subject, and especially what is empirical economics. So there has been a paradigm shift in the last 10 years or so in which the discipline has evolved. So I start with some of the big questions that economists, empirical economists particularly, work with. So what are these, so this is just to give a glimpse of the areas that all the big people or all the major researchers of the world are working on. So just looking at this slide, you can see that there are questions of poverty and inequality. So not only researchers, these are questions about life as well, which policymakers are also interested in, even journalists are interested in, any kind of citizens, they would be interested in how do we get jobs? How do we, get a better job? How does the situation of my city change? How does my surroundings change? So all these are questions that not only researchers are interested in, these are questions that engage us in general. So there are questions about poverty and inequality, which involves a large part of our research. Questions about human capital. So human capital is basically human, how quality of labor force basically, which includes health and education related problems, labor markets, questions about unemployment, governance and institutions, political economy, moving on, climate change, trade and globalization, technology and inclusion, health and behavior, migration and urbanization. So basically, economists are jack of all trades. And why has this happened? More so, this has happened. So 10 years back,
or say like if we go further back, this was not so. Primarily, economists were working on particular kinds of questions which were more which were grounded in economic theory. But there has been a paradigm shift in the last 10 years. So not only have we diversified our research questions in diverse fields, we are also in a big way in policy making. And right now, I will not go into this technical details of the papers because anyway, this is the last session and I don't want to bombard you with the heavy duty technical stuff, but if you are interested, sometimes you can do a separate, say, make a reading group or do a separate presentation on this paper by Nobel laureate, Professor Esther Duflo, who basically compares economists with plumbers, especially economists that are involved in policy making. And the basic argument that she's trying to make is that so earlier times you would think that there are these experts who advise governments, ये ठीक है, ये नहीं ठीक है, ऐसा कर दो फिर हो जाएगा. But this is not the case in present day policy. Economists are working with governments in also implementation. So I really like this paper a lot, and I would be very happy to present this paper separately, and we can read this paper together, where she basically gives this an analogy that economists must engage not only in policy design, so design करने में नहीं, जो कि इंजीनियर का काम है, taking the plumbing analogy, but also in implementation of the policy, because which is basically the plumber's job. Because there are, in terms of design, there are many things that you assume, there are hypotheses that you make, but when you implement it, of course, we are talking about many aspects of data, how good our sampling is, how good our randomization is, how good the quality of the data is. So all these things would affect the theoretical predictions that the theoretical model made when we are actually implementing policy. And while in policy making also, we don't take into consideration many aspects, say like corruptions, leaks, which possibly can happen. So, when researchers get into real world implementation, they can sometimes fine tune their hypothesis based on real world examples. And some of the seminal papers in this field are again this paper which is looking at school-based deworming, where they basically implement a deworming bill, which is a cheap alternative, and they found that not only did it affect the deworming that for which the bill was meant to be, but it also increased school attendance to a large extent. As a result of that school attendance, the education outcomes, their future labor market opportunities of children also increased. And as well as the fact that the neighborhood schools were also affected because of the deforming effect in one of the schools. So this is again one work work by one of the persons who went on to win Nobel Prize, not Duflo, but some other work, which and some. If you are interested in this work, we could also do a separate presentation of the important papers that have shaped the discipline over the years. Another two very prominent examples are this distribution of dead nets. And जैसे policy making में होता है कि some bureaucrat is making a decision and they are making decisions based on hunches, their experiences. तो एक बहुत हम लोग real life में भी use करते हैं कि देने से वो कभी काम नहीं आता. To keep a price to it, then people will value it and use it. And actually, these people, Duflo is a co-author in this paper. इन्होंने ये actual
एक्सपेरिमेंट करके टेस्ट किया कि हम अगर शहरी दे मच्छरदानी दे लोगों को फ्री में, और if we have a very small price, even like 5 rupees or 1 price, what will help them take more, which will increase uptake and usage. Because one of the arguments given is कि आप अगर free में देंगे तो लोग नहीं खरीदेंगे. But through this experiment that they showed that जिनको free में मिला, like even a small cost is possibly uh, a high cost for the group of people whom this policy is meant, and they are not interested to take it if you are keeping a price. But if you are distributing it free, it's not that people didn't take it up. People did take it up. They also used it, and it also served the purpose. So similarly, एक और बहुत इसके ऊपर भी एक बहुत चर्चित एक काम है, और इसके ऊपर भी लोग मतलब बहुत टू एंड फ्लो करते हैं कि सही है या नहीं है. वैक्सीनेशन अपडेट करवाना था अफ्रीका में. तो इन लोगों ने क्या किया कि 2 ग्रुप्स, अगेन इट्स एन RCT, 2 ग्रुप्स बनाए. एक ग्रुप को बोला वैक्सीन लेने आओ, आपको 1 किलो दाल मिलेगा. So typically अगर economic theory से जाते, so this is absolutely like unexpected behavior, because we are supposed to be all rational individuals making very calculated decisions about intertemporal choices. So I am interested in my child's health. For the future, I should get my child vaccinated. So I would take my child to the vaccination center if it is provided free of cost. And it shouldn't matter to me whether I'm being given free lentil or not. But actual जब field पे गए तो उन्होंने दिखाया ये कि जहाँ पे फ्री में दाल दे रहे थे वहाँ पे 6% ज्यादा वैक्सीनेशन अपटेक हुआ. So now, so basically, so these experiments help policymakers make decisions. And again, we have been discussing throughout the course of our this workshop that there are budget constraints, time constraints, and priority. So depending on अगर आपके पास एक infectious disease है, लक्ष्य है कि vaccination दिलवाइए, और आपको outreach करना है ऐसे populations में जहाँ पे अगर आप नहीं देंगे, that is a major health hazard. So then, as a policy maker, you have this choice, you have this evidence through which you can use and decide on policy. So basically, this is what we call as evidence-based policy making, where people have got into not only testing hypotheses from theoretical predictions, but developing hypotheses based on real-world examples, and which have helped in policy implementation. Now coming to Bihar, if you see all these questions that empirical economists are, or empirical researchers in general are interested in, अगर आप बिहार की का जो situation है देखेंगे, Bihar is the ideal sort of laboratory for people to work here, because there are many things that have a very low bars in high level of poverty, very high level of inequality. So अगर आप छोटे-छोटे intervention करेंगे, that can go on to make big differences. आपको difference दिखेगा. जहाँ पे already लोग बहुत अमीर हैं, जहाँ पे लोगों के पास awareness है अच्छा health और education का, वहाँ पे changes करना. So we call this marginal effects, right? So where it is already at a higher scale, to make an additional change is much more difficult, where the effects are very low. So even if you make small changes, it goes a long way. So in a way that Bihar is a lab for all empirical researchers. And ये मुझे पता चला. So I have been born and brought up here. I was in the discipline of economics. Not from like bad places in India, लेकिन मुझे बिहार के रिसर्च के बारे में पता चला US से जाके. And this is what is a story that I always tell to many people. Like when I went and first met my prospective advisor, she asked me कि क्या काम किया. So I was like, I've already done an MPhil from JD95. ये है मेरा काम. Then she looked at the citations and stuff. She said, "Oh, any modern development economist?" मैं बोला हाँ, दो लोगों से बात हुआ था. वो मेरे father, he has a small institute. वो लोग वहां पे आके कुछ कर रहे हैं, उनसे बात हुआ था. They said they know you sort of. So he's like, who are they? So I said, Esther Gupta और रोहित पांडे, वो लोग MIT और Harvard में हैं. So then she's like, so that very day she said, so this was in 2010, and she said, you know, like Esther is going to try someday. And she was my classmate, and her work was so much impactful that she graduated 1 year previous to me, and immediately MIT hired her and she became my advisor. So Esther and Abhijit were Amy Chin's advisor, who was my advisor. Basically, at one point of time, Amy Chin and Esther were colleagues, and then Esther became her advisor, and then they did some amazing work. And तो वहां पे जाके मुझे पता चला कि जो बहुत सारा काम, and then for the next 5 years, whatever we were studying as course material for us development economics courses was amazing. It was nothing that I had seen before in India, and that they went on to, many of them were actually done here in Bihar. So these are some of the top people who have worked in Bihar. आप किसी भी जगह पूछिए economists को, but even general public people's name. So now I think this was the point. From the traditional economics, we have made a lot. There has been a paradigm shift, और ये paradigm जो हो रहा है, ये इसको global recognition मिला है. So you will just get to know what I'm talking about in the next 3 slides. So if we are looking at 3 Nobel laureates, I will just briefly discuss the work of 3 Nobel laureates. First is Duplo Banerjee, and I mean not 3, but Nobel Prizes of 3 years. This was in 2019. Basically, they pioneered RCT to rigorously evaluate anti-poverty policies. RCT was not something that they discovered. As Sanchita was showing yesterday, it was widely used in public health research. But RCT का जो use, this is one of their major contributions. They mainstreamed RCT in testing policies and then help in implementing those policies. And the lentil example is one of the seminal work that is often cited. But of course, they have a range of work in all disciplines. किसी भी discipline में आप सोचिए, like climate change का subject हो, health का हो, economics का हो, sociology का हो, history का हो, सारी चीजों में उनका पेपर है. Even to certain things that say ADRI has been working on, say for example, things like effect of permanent settlement. How does permanent settlement, how does this 150-year-old land tenure system affect institutions in the current day work? उसके ऊपर भी उनका पेपर है. Everybody cites that paper because this is done in a way, again rigorously written and it's shown with examples. And now we basically use that reference to say, see, this is our work and this is also being done by a Nobel laureate, which a Nobel laureate has basically validated our work, which is a matter of pride for us. And they have quoted, like Professor Banerjee, he had his office in ADRI for a long time. We had detailed discussions with the people who were working here. They took ideas from there and they implemented them in a rigorous way. So this is something that I just wanted, so we do have pictures, but more than the pictures, what was the idea? What was the work behind it? We can discuss some of those papers, how are, so in many of the papers, actually people of ADRI who are still here have worked in terms of, say, collecting data, collecting, in helping possibly being RAs. They are still there somewhere, and they have produced this result. So we should, of course, know what are these work and then be happy to take ownership of it and to see how can we build to that legacy to produce our own work in a similar rigorous fashion. Now, second, so RCT is one area that empirical economics uses a lot, but then it is, as Sanchita pointed out yesterday, it is kind of expensive. You need resources for it. But RCT is not the only way that empirical economists use. There are many more novel ways that are being used. And one of them is natural experiments using difference in difference methodology, which was again in Nobel Prize of 2021, Angus and Invest. Both of them gave two separate methodologies. One is difference in difference, one is instrumental variable effect, which basically shows causality of in a given. So yesterday we were talking about X and Y. I forgot what you call them, but we basically call them dependent and independent variables, and how basically we show the cause. If Y is the independent variable, how do you causally statistically prove causality of X on Y? And I have some work using difference in difference and natural experiments and also IV, which I have put in the slides, but I don't want to go into the details today and bore you with the technical things now. But like we put if interested people. Anyway, I'm thinking of building this up as a course, and so I have a colleague, Neha, who is a professor at University in UK, and I'm in discussion with her to develop a joint course in developing empirical evidence as well as all these theoretical tools as well as theoretical ideas of classical economics to build it, to teach a joint course at Readings, which we can possibly also offer here. So I will be working on developing that and then discussing some of these papers in detail. So if most welcome to join a reading group if you want. Reading means not the University of, but a group where we come together and discuss papers, maybe do hands-on estimation codes and so on. Basically, coming back to difference in difference, what is the idea? Maybe I should just look at this graph. Idea बहुत simple है कि जैसे आप you are looking to, we are doing regressions, right? Regressions are basically straight lines as hypermotionally. We are doing a linear fit. So difference in difference का idea बहुत simple है. Basically एक policy change हम लोग लेते हैं. We assume that it's an exogenous change which is not related to the outcome or the to the dependent variables that in any way. So it completely बाहर से policy change आए. And how did that affect the outcomes? So अगर इसका एक example मैंने अपने काम में भी use किया है. It got published in a very nice, good way. So I was thinking of illustrating that, but just to give you an example very quickly from that, suppose tariff reduction हुआ. Some industries had no tariffs, some industries had very high tariffs. Then suddenly IMF, like balance of payment crisis हो गया. IMF ने India को, the international relations को स्टेबलाइज करने के लिए बोला कि आप अपने इम्पोर्ट टैरिफ्स को जीरो कर दो। तो इंडिया ये दिस इज एक्चुअली लाइक सो इन 1991 if I can show you that graph, on average we had 200% tariff, and overnight it was all reduced to zero. And even now working in policy space, I know that this is how policymakers work. कि एकदम से policy चला दो, तो वैसे ही चला दिया गया. But what it did very interestingly is that some industries had high tariffs, some industries had low tariffs. तो अब exogenously सबको zero कर दिया, तो जिसके पास ज्यादा टैरिफ था उसके लिए ज्यादा चेंज हुआ, जिसके पास कम था उसके लिए कम चेंज हुआ. So basically what we do is ये जो exogenous shock है उसका इफेक्ट हम आउटकम्स पे देखते हैं. तो यहाँ पे जो मेरे स्टडी है उसमें देखा था लेबर मार्केट.
वो ब्लैंक है, ब्लैंक.
नहीं, ये आ रहा है वो ग्राफ के ऊपर आ रहा है. हाँ, अच्छा, ठीक है, चलेगा.
ब्लैंक ऐसे आ रहा है.
हाँ, so I can talk more in detail about this if you are interested. Hello.
हाइट तो होना चाहिए. It was the net. The height for height.
हाँ, तो ये जो टर्मिनोलॉजी हमने डॉक्टर्स से बोरो किया, वी कॉल इट ट्रीटेड. तो बेसिकली अगेन इट इज लाइक इम्प्लीमेंटिंग अ मेडिसिन. सो पॉलिसी चेंज आप समझ लीजिए एक मेडिसिन है. कंट्रोल ग्रुप इज द ग्रुप व्हिच डिडंट गेट द मेडिसिन. ट्रीटमेंट ग्रुप इज द ग्रुप गॉट द मेडिसिन. तो यहाँ पे पॉलिसी the creativity is that policy को इसने medicine की तरह, it was an exogenous shock to the system. Now एक को मिला, एक को नहीं मिला. So now before that what we assume is so these are all technical stuff, but generally speaking both the things were moving in a parallel trend. So this is what we call as parallel trend assumption. Then the policy change happened. One got it and one didn't. So the red line is the treated line and the blue line is the control line. And then you can see that after the treatment, there is a deviation in the trend. So this is what, this is basically two regression lines, and the difference in difference is the difference in the coefficient. So difference in difference activity. Treated post minus treated pre minus control post minus control pre. तो एक डिफरेंस है कंट्रोल ग्रुप और ट्रीटमेंट ग्रुप में, और दूसरा डिफरेंस है प्री वर्सेस पोस्ट में. सो दैट इज व्हाई वी कॉल इट डिफरेंस इन डिफरेंस, एंड इट इज अ वेरी चीप वे ऑफ स्टडीइंग कॉज़ैलिटी, बिकॉज पॉलिसी चेंज तो के लिए हमने कुछ नहीं करना पड़ा, वो तो ब्यूरोक्रेट्स ने किया, या any other thing, any exogenous shock हम इससे स्टडी कर सकते हैं. Again we can use secondary data. अगर हमारे पास पैनल डेटा है तो we can use pre and post. I will come to an example of my work and show that how do we creatively use different data sets in secondary data to get this causal relationship. Now, another creative way of using demonstrating causality is the use of instrumental variables. Again, if I go to a diagram, यहाँ पे हम लोग assume करते हैं कि हम लोग x का effect y पे देखना चाहते हैं, but there could be many things that could be correlated. तो हम लोग cause नहीं बता पाएंगे. Suppose if I have more years, if I want to see the education ka effect, if I get education for more years, will my earnings increase? So अगर आप regression में education और earnings डालेंगे तो I get a positive correlation. positive coefficient. But that doesn't mean that um, because of the education my earnings have increased. There could be something इसके पास इसके लिए मेरे पास data है, पर भी इसकी बात है सारी चीजों का data हम collect कर नहीं सकते. And many times if the secondary data is there, जो है उसी को use कर सकते हैं. So it could very well be that like my earnings are more because I am more connected. I am a more extrovert person. Go and for example, emotionally we gave the example of Ramanujan. So Ramanujan was a genius, but like say someone is an extrovert and can make it. So uska, he or she would have better connections and hence more likely getting a job. But then इसके लिए मेरे पास data ही नहीं. So what do I do? So it's not, so one of the ways that has been creatively used is to use an instrumental variable. So basically use something as a proxy, which is related to X, but not to Y. And then estimate the effect of Z on Y to see how things are changing. And the assumption is that जो Z है, उसी का effect is driving the entire changes in Y through X. Again, this is a technical thing which I don't want to spend more time on, but this is being used in various like well-published work, and also so use of this creative technique has led to the Nobel Prize in 2021. And then again, coming to the Nobel Prize in 2024, which was on institutions and economic development. यहाँ पे IB का एक बहुत ही innovative example उन्होंने use किया. They were interested to understand whether how are institutions developed in colonies. तो अगर westerners जो गए थे, उन्होंने different countries में colonies बनाया. कुछ countries में institutions अच्छे बने, कुछ countries में institutions अच्छे नहीं बने, और इसका क्या कारण है? तो उन्होंने use किया IV instrumental variable as settlers mortality. So what they found through their initial qualitative studies, कि जिन countries में chances of mortality was higher for the colonizers, वहाँ पे उन्होंने extractive institutions बनाए, और जहाँ पे mortality rate was lower, वहाँ पे उन्होंने they made non-extractive institutions, and they demonstrate that through this work, which if you are interested, we can again look into. So, so then all these techniques basically have some assumptions, and through using them, what we are trying to do is basically show how one variable is causing another variable. What is the causal effect of variables? Now, these three are innovative techniques, but are they like something out of the blue? No, they are just complementing traditional statistical techniques that we use, as well as modern techniques of machine learning. So, so they are basically complements and not substitutes of these techniques. So for example, in terms of machine learning versus using tools of empirical economics, what are the differences? In machine learning, we are mostly interested in identifying predictions. So as Moshe was explaining to us, whereas here we are more interested in clarifying the mechanisms behind the fact. And again, we use very unclean data. So जो traditional statistics में use होता है, this kind of very good data, finance का data है, बहुत सारा data है, equal intervals पे है, the data is complete and I'm doing a modeling. But यहाँ पे मेरे पास तो real world data है, which is like आधी चीजें हैं, आधी चीजें नहीं हैं. So I have to impute in the missing values in between. I have to show in some other way. जैसे अभी हमारा Arpan was part of that work industries department approached us and said कि बताइए हमें कि कौन से industries में हम focus करें ताकि there is growth. And the data that they are giving us are completely like missing variables. Half of the variables are there, half are not there. So what we did was we tried to use some satellite data to see कि जो नाइट लाइट्स और को यूज किया इकोनॉमिक प्रॉक्सी के लिए, ये देखने के लिए कि जहाँ पे नाइट लाइट ज्यादा है वहाँ पे किस तरह कौन सी इंडस्ट्रीज वहाँ है, वहाँ से हम कुछ बता सकते हैं. But that data was so unclean that we could not even apply methods of empirical economy. But usually we are used to working with unclean, sparse data, which comes from the real world, and our expertise in creatively using proxy data sets, different data sets to reach the same question that we are interested in. Again, Bihar is a rich laboratory of empirical research. पहले ही आपको बता दिया था, and this is actually the perfect place to work on these problems. We are all working on them, but then it would be good to know some of the seminal work that has come out of here. So now I think I have covered all this. One point that I want to make is that when I showed the first slide that economists are working in all space, that doesn't mean that economists know everything or they can solve all problems. Experts in that area are important, and I have kept a paper from health. So public health में अगर आपको vaccination uptake पे काम करना है, तो इसका मतलब ये नहीं है कि using some data है मेरे पास, मैं कोई एक tool apply करके I get some results and I'm done. I need to talk to people who are experts in public health to understand what knowledge comes from that domain, and within that context I will frame my questions. So एक example मैंने बनाया, मैंने रखा है, but I don't think today I will go into it because I'm also looking forward to like the dumb charades and all. So I mean, hopefully you will be interested enough and we will have more of talk about this. So I'll just briefly go into some of my own work that so basically I took examples. Currently, so this is basically work from tariff changes and labor markets. There's also I put in a work from public health, another work from political science and health and education, just to show that there are different kinds of questions that we are working on. In each, we are working with in collaboration with some domain experts, which makes the work, which elevates basically the nature of work. So I'll just quickly demonstrate the difference methodology using natural experiment from from one of my works, and this work is basically published in a top economics journal called Annual Economic Review, and before that it was also accepted for presentation at the prestigious ADRI. And just to give a glimpse of it, that this work, I started this work during my PhD. So we started it from answering a question that my advisor had worked on for Mexico. Taken जब India का data लिया and we applied the tools, we saw that Mexico वाला जो findings है, those are not applicable there. And some so after having local discussions in, like with experts, we realized that something else is going on, which is driving. And initially my advisor was not at all like, she's like, you must be doing something wrong, go back. फिर नहीं ये हो ही नहीं सकता है, गलत है, go back. So ऐसे करते, but then ultimately we were following. I mean, she was also at the same time encouraging the logical steps to which this evidence was generated, and eventually it turned out. So it didn't. So I started working on it from 2014, and ultimately it got published in 2021. In between जो first submission जहाँ पे publish हुआ था वहाँ पे 2019 में submission I was just checking some of the stats yesterday night. So 2019 submission हुआ था. There were so many rounds of comments that came, and ultimately it took time to work on that. So basically, what were the key findings? तो ये जो tariff exogenous tariff change था इसका labor market पे effect देखा था. What we found was that in the Indian case, tariff changes has led to more growth and productivity, but at the same time, it has increased gender inequality or decreased employment opportunity for women, which was contrary to the predictions of the greatest predictors of trade theory or some big names. So basically, Gary Becker is a Nobel laureate. उन्होंने theoretically predict किया, उसका उल्टा result आया. So which is why we were thinking that it might be wrong. But then the thing was that there are so many, when you are looking at data and real world situation, there are many confounding factors that you have to take into account that drive your result, and you have to make small steps at a time to reach to your results. So what we found is contrary to the predictions of the state trade theory, employment opportunity for women, and that was specifically driven by particular labor laws in India that were from an archaic period. So in general, the policies were not bad. They say gaining trade liberalization is a bad policy, or the labor laws which are meant to protect worker rights are bad. But the take-home message from this policy implementation ke time pe, there are many things which you don't expect might happen, and these works show that like there are unintended consequences of policy that always needs to be taken into account. So again, I don't want to go into like more technical details, but just to give an idea that there were like different data sets that we used. One was a panel data from annual survey of industries, then district level employment data, education data, tariff data. एक ही paper में we were using like 5-6 different data sets to show different effects. Then I used difference in difference approach using variation in tariff reductions across industries and time. So and then basically this found a very, very good place where it got published. And there are a host of work that I'm also doing out of this. So which is also relevant for Picard. For example, as one of the papers that we're working on, the same tariff exogenous strategy on how does it affect caste-based inequality. And we have some results which we are going to present to Royal Economic Society in the UK very soon, next month. And then using that result, we found ये भी first वाला secondary data पे था, ये भी secondary data पे है. उसको करते हुए we found that there are certain things that we can possibly not available in secondary data. So we need primary data to test those stuff. And we applied for a grant, and we got that grant to do a pilot. And that's what we have done with this work with the University of Reading, which I think Linda will present in this work, where we are. So basically, जब हम effect of globalization on jobs देखते हैं, how do we define good and bad jobs? जब हम बोल रहे हैं कि इसके लिए अच्छा हुआ, उसके लिए बुरा हुआ. अच्छा बुरा क्या होता है? Like, is it salary? Do I look at education? What are the parameters that I check? I asked Chitra, do you have some health data के इसको इन jobs में ज़्यादा बीमारी, researchers possibly have a sedentary life. So being a researcher might be prestigious, but looking at some other parameter, it might be a very bad job because uh, most people might have diabetes or, obesity. So how do we, or some jobs could be extremely hazardous, like Sunil was explaining, like, okay, or something. So how do we test, I mean, how do we define jobs? And basically, जब good bad का definition होगा, then only we will inspire aspirations among people. So how to do those jobs, basically? So how does occupational risk, how, so these are measurement questions that we are basically testing in this pilot, where we are trying to test how to define occupational prestige, how to define aspirations, and how to find basically then bad jobs. There are two more papers and which are basically lying in an old folder. One is a very good paper, like Saurabh was saying that we should know which paper will, इसके पीछे काम करने से आपको results मिलेगा. So this paper by Janet Peters, that got again. We presented that at the International Conference of Wellness Economics. It's a very good paper that we were working on. It's just that it as in left it there. So like anybody who would be interested, feel free to please contact me. I'll be very. So there are many things like I have the results, but then that. Writing that and then submitting to a case is there. There is another again how the related to the first one, which is looking at trade liberalization and education attainment. This is relative is not that great a result, but it is still something which was novel. And we could possibly also get a paper out of it. So any interns would be happy to have hands-on experience. I'll be happy to help you with that. Then time. So I'll just take 5 minutes and just mention another work. This work also, I'm very happy the way it has panned out. So yesterday we got a revise and resubmit from Journal of Development Economics, which is, I think, one of the, it is good journal. It's even better than IMF. We start category sort of could very well come in the top development journal in my field. Here, the way we got this paper is, the journey of this paper is very interesting. It is the work of CHP. That time I was not involved in ADRI, but suddenly, like, it so happened that one work was going on, and whoever was heading that just vanished. So I got in charge of this. I was given this work with the thing that can you just let this work, let a survey karna hai where we are going to schools and we have to basically get an understanding of the health situation. There are school education programs that are being run and also health programs. We want to do the impact assessment of health programs on the health outcomes as well as the education outcomes. And the thing is, when it came to me, this work, it was already like, it wasn't like I conceived this from the beginning, it just came midway. But it was such an interesting and important work that I thought that, I should take this up. And we had to look at the health, both physical and mental health outcomes of small kids as well as teenagers. So वो एक काम हुआ है, which where there is a lot of data that we collected on various health outcomes, both physical and mental health. But at that time, I was, when we were looking at mental outcomes, we were, I was talking to some of the behavioral economics की behavioral outcomes कैसे check करते हैं. So that is how the conversation started with Ritik Banerjee. He is a professor in IIM Bangalore, and some of his colleague Soham Sahu and his PhD student Shatrughat. हमारे पास बस 10 दिन था, and we just started discussing the entire, like the questionnaire was formed and stuff. When we were talking about the health and behavioral outcomes, out of that discussion, we were talking about various issues that affect Bihar and India in general, and caste came up out of that. And then we just realized that there is more work that is being done that looks at the effect of, because Soham had worked a lot on teacher bias. Teachers bias, caste bias, mental health or aspirations को कैसे affect करते हैं. We had a questionnaire. What we thought is कि इसमें एक additional module डाल देते हैं जहाँ पे teacher का caste bias check करते हैं, which was very not expensive to do. Actually, our surveyors were going questionnaire to high health outcomes का, mental health outcomes भी ले रहे हैं, physical health outcomes ले रहे हैं. हमें what we decided to test them how good they are in maths, Hindi and English. तो ये एक एडिशनल मॉड्यूल चेक किया कि टीचर से पूछते हैं आप रैंक करो स्टूडेंट्स को कि हाउ गुड इज द स्टूडेंट, how is the student at the top of the class, middle of the class or bottom. And we are doing our test where we can also rank whether out of this thing, picking a random sample from the class, he is student. And the results are like really very interesting, which is why I think it is accepted in journal. And of course, इसमें मतलब हमारे पास 10 दिन था, we had limited resources, we didn't have enough data to control. जैसे regression में होता है ना, अगर caste bias का effect mental और physical health पे देख रहे हैं, there could be many variables that are confounded. So what we did was we used the GPS coordinates to match it with the census villages, census level, village level controls use किया, उसके बाद school level controls use किया using the secondary what is that data? The school data that is there for the structured data. And using that, we through very simple techniques of fixed effects regression, what we find is that backward caste students experience higher depression codes when taught by forward caste teachers, and backward caste students are more likely to be classified as depressed compared to forward caste students. I find this part more interesting in terms of evaluation bias of the teachers when we are comparing teachers' ranking versus our own test scores versus based on ACER test data. We find that forward caste teachers rank backward caste students' performance, underestimate the performance of backward caste students. And we also explicitly ask questions about aspirations, and we find that backward caste students, it is not expected. We have, lower likelihood for aspiring for higher education. These are very powerful results that have a lot of policy implications. So basically, like this could be used as, background paper for training module. यहाँ पे another important point that we find is the caste divide is mitigated when we have female teachers. Female teachers are not as biased as their male counterpart. So, so these are certain things which are very measured concepts, but could be measured in novel ways with not very expensive techniques using, say, existing modules. इसमें आप additional modules डाल के, there are interesting things that one could. So there are similar ways, say, lab in the field experiments, survey experiments, and we are doing such small experiments in the regular EMJY or some other work that we are doing. So we'll be very happy to discuss those for in future. Right now, I don't want to. Yeah, right now I don't want to. So this is again another paper which we did with some colleagues at Piramal. So like I was saying that domain knowledge is very important. इस पेपर में हम देखना चाह रहे थे कि वैक्सीन लोग क्यों नहीं लेते. And what was our contribution is to develop ways to test vaccine acceptance. Then we develop ways to test misinformation and mistrust. लेकिन उसका जो analysis है, like we find regressions करके उसको लिखना कैसे है, so that a public health audience can appreciate the results, because results are important and good, but the way you write it and the way you present it to the world is also important. So we did that in this work, and there also we have some interesting results that misinformation. So I'm very happy to see yesterday's play by Pawanji. Misinformation kitna zyada hai about medicines, about the people think of symptoms. So we have used some of those things in our questionnaire to build the index, and those things we do find has got. So yeah, I think I should stop there. There are several more work which I wanted to include, but I can already see that people are really tired. But thank you so much. So we have a small presentation ceremony like yesterday. All the presenters will get an ADRI folder. So I would like to call don't present it. Don't present. You can present it. Start with that. One start with
Thank you for this talk. And the small token from EIACP. So, Ushashi ma'am will present. So, I would like to call upon Ashita also.
thank you.
Next, Arthur,
Following random order.
please come, Rachna and Anmol. After Saurabh. You can send your
Extra है.
मेरा वाला वापस
If you have one extra, then His head was also very sharp.
Definitely.
I we don't need this one. We can keep this one for some other time.
Indeed a wonderful experience. I say thank you to all of you. Let's start the other event. Sorry, all of you are waiting. Thank you.
जो जो presenting are getting, सबको मिलेगा जो जो present करेंगे.